Divorce lawyers of Reddit, what plot twists, or crazy antics or demons have you seen go down from either spouse? I'm not a lawyer. But this is a story about my uncle and it's quite brilliant. My uncle has been a lifelong videographer and still works to this day as a news photographer. During the early to late 90s he stopped shooting news and started shooting freelance. This was before everyone and their moms, had a camera editing software whatnot. Eventually he became a sought-after photographer. In the 80s when he was working as a news photographer he met and married a reporter news anchor of which he would go on to have 2 children with. After leaving the news business to freelance he decided to start a video editing business with his wife. That went extremely well for a while and they were making money hand over fist. He would be asked to shoot for channels such as Food Network and HGTV, DIY, etc. and then edit it into the show. She would work as the middle woman for his clients and as bookkeeper. Eventually she would turn out to be a secret substance abuser and adulterer and their marriage ended in divorce. At this point my uncle was making a couple $100K a year with their business. She decided to sue him for alimony, mostly because he was worth a good chunk of change, but also because she helped him build his business. Her demands were ridiculous, something like 75% of the business for the next so many years or something crazy. My uncle's lawyer was afraid she was going to win because she had played such a big role in building the biz. Fast forward to court day. Her lawyer stands in front of the judge and lists off what she wants in the divorce. Once he is finished it's my uncle's turn. He blindsides her and offers to give her 100% of the business. The judge and both lawyers are confused and ask him if he is sure. Without him shooting and editing there is no business. So basically she would be left with a hell of a lot less than she asking for by asking for X amount of profits. The judge reasoned that his offer was fair and that she could take it or leave it. He was pissed, her lawyer was pissed and she ended up getting nothing, haha. This is a true story and it happened in New Jersey. Guy getting a divorce becomes suspicious and insanely jealous that his separated wife is having an affair. He secretly follows her to a bar and waits outside in his car. She comes out many hours later in the dark and follows another car to a house. Husband follows her, staying back, and parks down the block. He gets out, sees the house her car is parked at, and goes around into the backyard. He's sneaking around looking in windows and finally opens sliding glass door and enters the house. His wife and the guy she is with hear him moving around, lock the bedroom door, and call 911. He starts pounding on the bedroom door and shouting at his wife, and then the cops kick in the front door. The cops get everyone downstairs to sort this out. That is when the guy realized for the first time his wife was sleeping with his own divorce lawyer. I work with a woman who is a devout Christian. She met some guy from Nigeria online and fell in love. He was working as a Christian missionary in Singapore. She flew to Singapore, they got married and she helped him get US citizenship, etc. Eventually, she got pregnant and they had a daughter together. As soon as the girl was born, the father began getting her a passport and money together to take her to Africa so she could get circumcised. He eventually copped to marrying her solely to obtain US citizenship. She divorced him and was able to limit his supervised visitations to 1 hour per week due to his insistence on taking her to Africa to get the procedure done. He's still adamant to this day that his now 4-year-old daughter should have her clitoris clipped. Not a divorce lawyer. Just someone that has gone through a child custody battle and I had to tell my one great story under oath. Sit through this one, Reddit. I can't make this shit up. My ex and I had broken up and she decided to get an apartment 30 minutes away from where our apartment was. It's probably for the best so we'd never run into each other in public. My ex is a first-grade teacher and found a school to work for on that side of town. My daughter went to school there too, just to make it easier on her mother. I'd drive there and pick up my daughter from school every single day during the week because I work at 5 a.m. and got off at 1:30 p.m. I became good friends with all of the stay-at-home moms and would talk with them every day after school while our kids ran off their energy on the playground. On my days off, I'd drop her off and just hang out on that side of town and get to try new restaurants, find new comic book shops, etc. On one particular day, I decided to try Wee Man's chronic tacos for lunch. Now, what they don't tell you about Wee Man's chronic tacos is that you need to be within 30 minutes of a toilet after you eat it. I was on my way to get my daughter and I felt like I had to fart really bad. I just casually looked around and let loose in the car. It was at this moment that I knew I had made a terrible mistake. Yes, Reddit. I shat my pants 30 minutes from home, 10 minutes before I had to pick my daughter up from school. I had a simple decision to make. Go up there and get her anyway or make something up and come back later. I checked myself out and thankfully it didn't show through my jeans. I went up there quickly and took my daughter aside. Sweetheart, this is really embarrassing. Daddy had an accident. You can't play with your friends today. We need to go. Like a trooper, she understands and we leave. Now, I told you that story to tell you this story. I left out one major detail above. The routine was, I'd pick my kid up, she'd play with her friends, her mother would come out to the playground and see her for a little while and then leave. On this particular day, I broke the routine. On the ride home, my phone is going off like crazy. My phone was on silent and needless to say, I wouldn't have answered it anyway. Fast forward to our custody hearing. I've got 2 lawyers, she doesn't have one. Without getting into too many details, it generally isn't going very well for her. She's desperate, really desperate to make me look like an unfit parent. Representing herself while I'm on the stand, asks about what happened on that particular day. The day I kept her daughter away from her. Reddit, I looked at my lawyers who I also had to tell this story because I saw this coming. They smiled and gave me that. Well, go on, look. I had to tell the story about how I shit my pants after eating Wee Man's chronic tacos to a judge, a bailiff and a court stenographer. Midway through this story, the judge goes from looking at me with this piercing glare to covering her mouth trying so hard not to burst out into laughter. Seeing how well received my story was, my ex had no further questions. The judge ended my getting off the stand with well, now that that's on public record. I froze. That's on public record, oh man. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I tell this story now. Let's see. I've had a client come in to file divorce only to realize that the other party already obtained a divorce. He lied and never properly served her and she defaulted. Had to undo that one. Put 3 fathers in jail for contempt. They had a sudden case of RAIDS, recently acquired income deficiency syndrome, and refused to pay support to their dependent spouses and or minor children. Had a guy completely sandpaper key the finish of a brand new Maserati that was given to the wife pursuant to settlement agreement because he hated his ex so much. Also took off the ties. Had a guy who funneled money over to his girlfriend, thinking he was slick hiding it from his wife. Girlfriend broke up with him and kept it. 5. Have a guy who got a $500,000 settlement, and so he prepaid all of his expenses up front for several years so he wouldn't have to pay up. Had a guy put all of his properties in the name of business partners so as to put it beyond the court's reach, and thus the wife's reach. Had another guy claim he was unemployed but moved his paychecks to a friend's bank account. Had to get ex parte orders to inventory safes when I knew people had cash-based businesses, and injunctions to freeze bank accounts, so forth. Sometimes by the time we got it, it was too late and money was removed. Absentee dads, sorry to be gender specific, suddenly become fathers of the year. Now he attends parent-teacher conferences, now he goes to doctor's visits and soccer practices. Never gave a damn before date of filing. 9. Men with midlife crises spending tons of cash on the girlfriend, vacations, jewelry etc., yet cries poverty when it comes to alimony in long-term marriages where the wife was a stay-at-home for the past 35 years. One guy faked a divorce decree from another country to avoid paying alimony. Guy was adamant, to the point of tears, that he never had sex with that woman. Took DNA test, was the father. People wanting extra visitation just so they can get a reduction in child support. Then once the case is concluded, They leave the children with a nanny even though the other spouse is home and willing to care for the kids. Had a guy stage a break-in at my client's home, stole her personal computer and other relics. Then presents us with photo evidence he obtained from the computer about our client's infidelity. I am not a divorce lawyer, but I dated one. And my favorite story from his work was the man who was super pissed that the division of assets was 50/50 and that his wife's lawyer had a forensic accountant who found his multiple offshore money stashes. In retaliation, he demanded half the dog. Not joint custody. Half of the dog. Who was his wife's much beloved, very spoiled little buddy. He burned through thousands of dollars of legal fees just to make her cry, by demanding that the dog be put to sleep and its ashes split, 50/50. People are delightful. I had a couple arguing for 3 hours over who got the kids on Christmas Day. Only to discover at the end that they were both Jewish. I had another woman who said that her husband drained $60,000 from their community bank account to pay for a sex change operation that he never told her he was planning to do. My dad says he won the custody hearing. Because my mom got to keep me.